So we're factoring trinomials today. 3 parts to it, okay? Here are the steps. Here are the steps we're going to use. We'll go over them, each step. Some of them we need to use all 5. Some of them we don't need to use this one or this one or this one, but we have to go through to make sure that we use all of them, okay? Okay, so let's look at number 1. Example 1a. Okay? So anytime it's a trinomial, right? This guy's a trinomial. How do I know it's a trinomial? Because it's got 3 parts. It's got 3 terms. 2x squared is one term. Negative 9x is the one term. And then positive 7 is the last, right? It's got 3 parts to it. So anytime it says factor, how do we factor those? We got 5 steps. First step is it needs to be in standard form. So what do I mean by standard form? I mean the powers need to go from biggest to next biggest, all the way to the smallest, okay? So let's look at this guy. The yellow one has a power of 2, right? The green, what power does green have? 1. And then the pink has 0 power, right? So that's in what we call descending order. The powers go from big power, middle power, little power, okay? So step 1 is actually done for us already. It won't always be, but it is. So when we say descending, that means the powers. Make sure the powers go in order from top to bottom. Okay? The next step, we've done this before, GCF. So is there something I can divide them all 3 of them by this time? Not 2 of them anymore, 3 of them. Any number or anything besides 1? No, I don't think so, right? The yellow and the green have x's. The pink doesn't, so I can't divide by x. 2 goes into 2, but negative 9 doesn't, and 7 doesn't. So yeah, the GCF is just 1. If it's just 1, you can skip that step. And the leading guy, the guy in front, is positive, right? 2 is positive. Okay, that's that step. So I didn't have to do step 1 or step 2 for this guy. The next step is A, B, C. Labeling what is A, what is B, what is C. So how do we do that? It's not hard, but it is important. A is the number in front of the first guy. So what's the number and what's the coefficient, the part that is in front? 2. That's going to be A. The middle guy, what's the number part for there? Negative 9. And then 7 is just 7, right? That's step 3. Step 3 is probably the easiest. Step 4. Step 4 is probably the part that you guys have done before or used to. Step 4, first thing we're going to do is we're going to make an X. Top. In the top part, I'm going to put a little dot. And in the bottom, I'm going to put a plus. Dot means multiplication. The plus means addition. Okay, so I'm going to fill this guy out now. Got 4 sections. I'm going to fill them all with numbers. So how do I get the top? The top is always A times C. So in our case, it's 2 times 7, 14, right? B, you don't have to do anything to B. B just stays the same and it moves to the bottom. So B, we don't have to multiply anything. It's just negative 9. So here's that X game that some of you guys have used before. So the game works like this. So I need 2 numbers that when I multiply makes positive 14, but when I add them makes negative 9. So it's mental math. Okay? So some of you can do this, right? It's going to be negative 7 and negative 2. Some of you got it, right? Mental math is your thing. Some, it's like, you know what? So how do I do this? Let's say I didn't know that it was going to be negative 7 and negative 2. How would I do this? Well, this is how I do it. Take 14. List all of the things that make 14. So like 2 times 7. 14 times 2, or 1. Right? But then also negatives. Right? Negative 2 times negative 7. Negative 14 times negative 1. Right? Those all make 14. Which of those also add up to negative 9?
Negative 2.
Okay, so that's the guy we want. Now we're going to put one on the left, one on the right. Which one goes where? It doesn't matter. You can start with -7 or you can start with -2. Oops. As long as one of them's a -7 and one of them's a -2. Okay, so those are the guys we're going to continue with. We're going to go to the next step. The next step is a 2x2 box. We've used the box before, but we're going to use it a little differently than we've used it in the past. Today it's always going to be a 2x2 box. 2x2. So a window with 4 panes, 4 sections. Okay. The first guy, the yellow, always goes in the first spot. So 2x squared, in this case, is going to go here. It won't always be 2x squared, but whatever is in that first, wherever A came from, that's the guy that's going to go first. The guy that goes last is always the guy where C came from. +7. Okay. What are the other two? That's where these two guys come from. -2 and -7. Which one goes first, which one goes second? It doesn't matter. You can put -7 first, you can put -2 first. Doesn't matter. I'll put -2 and -7 there. The thing is, though, those two guys add up to be -9. Where did we get -9 from? B, right? -9x. It was -9x at the start, right? So these two guys, when I add them together, have to make -9x. So what do they need? X's. Okay. Now we're going to do reverse multiplication. Reverse multiplication, division. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with the two things that multiply, because there's two things that multiply to make 2x squared. Okay, let's start with the x squared. What times what makes x squared? How do I make x squared? X times x, right? So some people think, oh, it's 2 times x, right? That makes 2x squared. No, that makes 2x. To make x squared is x times x. So that's the first thing I'm going to put. X times x. Oops. Okay. Now, how do I make +2? A 2 and 1, right? So one of them is going to be a 2 and one of them is going to be a 1. My question is it going to be like that? Or is it going to be like that? Because I have two options. This is how you know. Try one of them. Let's try, don't write this down yet. Let's say I'm putting 2 up here and a 1 down there. Let's say I try that. You'll know quickly if it works or not. How do we know? Well, does 2, the next thing we're going to do, so once we take care of this one, we're going to move down to this part. So is there anything times this that'll make -7x? No, that won't work, right? That's when you know you did it wrong. So how do I fix it? Switch them. Move this guy over here, this guy over here. Now you can write it down, because we know that's going to work. So let's go back to that one part that we got stuck at. Is there anything, this times what makes -7x? Means the next -7, right? So that one works. Now let's go to the next, the top right. This times what makes -2x? -1, good. You'll know you did it right because this guy times this guy will equal that. And it does. -7 times -1 makes +7. So I know I did it right. Okay? So let's bring those factored terms out.
So instead of having, like, when you do it, you usually do, like, the outside to find the inside.
There you go.
You're doing the inside to find the outside.
Yeah. On Monday, we did the outsides to find the insides, right? That's what we did on Monday. Today is reversed. We do the insides to find the outsides. We go the opposite direction. Yeah. So x minus 1, you can just write x minus 1. You don't have to write 1x minus 1. And then 2x minus 7. So So a student asked last period, Mr. Flores, what if I wrote 2x minus 7 there and x minus 1 there? Is that okay? I'm like, yeah, that's okay. As long as you have a parentheses with x minus 1 and a parentheses with 2x minus 7, order doesn't matter. That's step 4. So that's step 4. Step 4 is probably the one that's going to take you the longest, but also the one you might have done before. Step 5 is something we did Tuesday and Wednesday. Difference of squares. Are any of these two guys here considered difference of squares? No, right? The first one is close. Isn't the first one close? But it doesn't have this guy, right? It's got to be an even power. So if this one had a 2, I would say go for it. This one, no chance, because 2 is not on my list of perfect squares. 7 isn't on my list of perfect squares, right? So that guy has no shot. That guy was close, but not close enough. So if you can, that's why I put a question mark after difference of squares, because sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. So if you can't, you're done. That's your answer. Okay. That's all we're doing today. Today, I'm just going to use those same steps. Now, for this problem, I didn't do step 1 and step 2. Sometimes I'm going to need to do. This one, I also didn't do step 5. Sometimes I'm going to need to do that. That's the only new thing. That's the only added thing. Everything is using those same steps. Okay? So let's look at letter B now. Is it a trinomial? Yeah, it's got 3 terms. So step 1, is it in descending powers? Are the powers? No, it's kind of reversed, right? It's kind of in ascending, right? It's going up. We don't want ascending, we want descending. So how do we change it? We move them. This guy is going to need to go in the front. This guy is going to need to go in the back. So the negative comes with it, negative x cubed. The middle guy can stay because it's in the middle. And then positive 12x because it was positive 12. The signs, the positives and the negatives move with it. Okay, so here's my first term now. Here's my second term. Here's my third term. Step 2, GCF. Is there a GCF? Well, I need the first guy to be positive, and right now the first guy is negative, right? So I know I'm going to have to divide by a negative something. So I'm going to put a negative here. A negative 1? Well, let's look at x's. Can I take away an x from, do they have x's to give? Yeah, this guy's got 3, this guy's got 2, this guy's got 1. They all have at least 1 to give, right? So I'm going to, by a negative 1x or a negative x, either way, that's my GCF. So that guy's going to go in the front. GCF always goes in the front. And then I'm going to rewrite it. Negative divided by a negative makes a positive. I took away a power, so it's going to be 1x squared. You can just write x squared. Negative divided by a positive makes a negative 4. I take away a power, just got an x. The last one, negative divided by a positive, makes a negative 12. I take away a power, it's got no more x's. Okay, that was step 2. Once we do step 2, now our focus is only on this guy in the inside. I'm not worried about what it started to look like. I'm not worried about what it was before a GCF. I know the GCF's in front. I'm only focused on the blue now. So when I do the next steps, the next 3 steps, I'm going to focus on this guy in here. Okay? So the next one was ABC. I don't care how it started. What I'm concerned about is now. So now, what is A, what is B, what is C? 1, yeah, 1's in front of x squared, right? 1 is here. negative 4, and negative 12. Okay. That was step 3.
But if like the GCF was like -2, then like it would be different answers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Depending on what the GCF is, that's going to change A, B, and C. Yeah. Okay. Next step, step 4, x. Multiplication plus. So how do we multiply? You multiply A times C. Negative 12 times positive 1 is negative 12. B always just goes on the bottom. So now I need the numbers that multiply to be negative 12, but also add to be negative 4. Okay, so like I said, some of you guys are good with the mental math. You guys, boom, takes you a couple seconds, you can get it. Let's say you didn't know how to do that. Well, let's make a list. Negative 12 is negative 12 times 1, or negative 1 times 12, right? And then there's 6 and 2. Negative 6 times 2, negative 2 times 6. And then the last one is negative 4 and 3, and negative 3 and 4. Those are all the ways to make negative 12. But I need the one that also adds up to be negative 4. That's going to be that guy. So I'm going to have a negative 6 and a positive 2. Two by 2 box. First guy goes in the top. We don't go all the way back up to the top. We go after the GCF. So when you're trying to fill in the box, you go after you've done the GCF. So x squared goes there. Negative 12 goes here. And then you're going to fill in the two numbers you came up with, negative 6 and positive 2. And they both need an x. How do I make x squared? X times x. X times negative 6, x times positive 2. So I get x minus 6 and x plus 2. Don't forget about your GCF though. GCF continues to be in the front. I need that guy to stay in the front. So negative 1x. Okay, that was step 4. Step 5. Are any of these guys difference of squares? Nope. Again, they don't have a squared. They don't have an even power. So if they don't have an even power, it's a non-starter. Done. Okay? So that time we needed to do step 1 and step 2. The only step we didn't need to do was step 5. But we used the same steps. There's no problems on here where it's like extra steps that I haven't shown you. Okay? Those are the 5 steps you're going to use when you're doing this. Okay? What I want you to do now, before we go to C, skip ahead to D. Skip ahead to D and try that one on your own. Try D on your own. We're going to come back to C. Don't worry about that. We'll do it. But I want you to try C on your own because it's kind of like this one here. Or D, sorry. I want you to try D on your own because it's kind of like the one you just did. Okay? I'm going to be walking around. Try it. No pressure today because we're just learning it, right? Today it's okay to make mistakes. Okay, so this guy is already in descending order. Power of 3, power of 2, power of 1. It goes from big power, littlest power. Okay? So, GCF. I can first divide them all by 2. And they all have at least one x. So my GCF is going to be 2x. So 2x is going to go in the front. And divide. 5 goes into 10, or 2 goes into 10 5 times. If I take away a power, I got 2 left. 2 goes into 22 11 times. If I take away a power, it's just got 1. 2 goes into negative 24 negative 12 times. If I take away a power, I got no powers. This is what I'm focused on now. GCF is going to come along for the ride, but in terms of what I do with it, I don't do anything with it. Okay? Step 1, step 2, step 3. A, B, C. 5, 11, negative 12. A times C, 12 times, negative 12 times 5 makes negative 60. And then positive 11. So negative 60. So this is what I do. So if I don't know off the top of my head, I go to my calculator. Okay, there's different ways to do it. Some of you can do this in your head, some of you can't. So what I do is I put the number, so negative 60 in my calculator, and I do division. See what numbers work. Start with 2. I know 2 is going to go in. So I need to make positive 11 when I add, right? So will 2 and a 30 make 11? Not even close, right? So 2 can't work. 3. Will 3 and negative 20 work? That's negative 17. Getting closer, but still doesn't work. 4. 4 plus negative 15, that makes negative 11. How do I make it positive 11?
Negative 4 and positive.
Yeah, make 4 negative. Make 4 negative. If I make 4 negative, then that'll be positive. That's the numbers I want. 15 and negative 4. Okay. First guy, after the GCF, the first guy became 5x squared. And then the last one was negative 12. That's the ones I wanted to work with. Not the original, after the GCF. And then one of them is going to be 15x, and one of them is going to be negative 4x. Okay. So I know x times x is going to make x squared, right? But I got to make 5 as well. So that means one of them has to be a 5 and one of them has to be a 1. Is it going to look like that? Or is it going to look like this? It's going to look like this. Yeah. Why is it going to look like this? Because this goes into this, right? 5 times 3 makes 15. So this is going to be a positive 3 and this is going to be a negative 4. Okay. GCF, don't forget about your GCF, is going to go in the front. And then I have a 1x plus 3 and a 5x minus 4. Like I said, order doesn't matter. As long as you have a x plus 3 in parentheses and a 5x minus 4, you can reverse that order. My last question is are any of these guys difference of squares? No. Nope. You're done. So don't forget GCF. That guy right there. Don't forget to put him in front. Okay. So far, we've used step 1, we've done that. We've done step 2 with GCF, step 3, step 4. The only step we haven't used is 5. We're going to use that for the next one. So let's go back up to C, the one right before it. This one, we're actually going to use all 5 steps. This guy we're going to use, that's the difference between this guy. That's why I wanted you to skip this guy for right now, but we'll come back to it. Step 1, descending order. Nope, it's not in the correct order. So I got to move this guy first, move this guy last. So a negative x to the fourth plus 15x squared minus 54. Their signs go with them. Okay. This has got a negative 1 in front, right? Okay, step 1 is done. Step 2, I have to do, is there a GCF? And not only that, but I have to make the first guy positive. Right now, the first guy is negative. So I know I need to divide by a negative something. Well, doesn't look like negative anything except just 1, right? So the GCF here is just going to be negative 1. So that's going to make positive x to the fourth, negative 15x squared, positive 54. That's what I'm going to use the rest of the way. GCF is just going to come along for the ride. Step 3, ABC. Okay, so what's in the A position? A 1, yeah. B is negative 15. C is positive 54. So positive 54, negative 15. The two numbers that multiply to be 54 and add to be negative 15. Again, if you don't know, use your calculator. You can use your calculator. Okay? Just start dividing by things. Just go to 54. So I need to make negative 15. So I go 54 divided by, start with 2. Nope. Start with 3. No, getting closer, but that's not going to be what I need. So it's going to be 6, right? Yeah, so this one's going to have to be negative. So if I make one negative, the other's negative. So negative 6 plus negative 9 equals negative 15. So negative 6 and negative 9. So this is the step that's going to look a little different, a little bit different, not terrible, not very different, just a little bit. Okay? First guy goes in the first box. Always, always, always. Last guy goes in the last box. Always, always, always. Negative 9 is going to go in one of them. Negative 6 is going to go in the other. Or reversed. You can flip them too. This is where it's a little different. Because when I add up negative 9 and negative 6, they make negative 15, but it's not x, right? It was x squared. So these two guys are going to need an x squared. That's where it's a little different. That's the first difference. The second difference is now what times what doesn't make x squared. I need x to the fourth. So what? Yeah, it's just going to, yeah. So it's going to be x squared and x squared. This is going to be a negative 9, and this is going to be a negative 6. Don't forget about my GCF. My GCF was negative 1, so that's got to stay in front. Okay. That was step 4. Step 5. Are any of these guys difference of squares? The answer is yes. So let's take a look. Before we could just, it was no. Now it's yes. Well, which one? Both? One of them?
Just the right side.
Just the right side, right? This one, x squared minus 6, is close, but 6 isn't on my list of perfect squares, right? It's not on my list. 9 is. So this guy is difference of squares. The other guy, so -1 is going to come down. X squared minus 6 is going to come down. This guy is going to break down into 2 parentheses. 1 plus, 1 minus. Powers get halved. They get cut in half. So if they had 2, the power now is going to be 1 and 1, right? What's the square root of 9? 3. So you put a 3 here, you put a 3 there, and you are done. Again, order doesn't matter. All I'm looking for is make sure you have a -1 in front. Make sure you have a parentheses with x squared minus 6. Make sure you have a parentheses with x plus 3. And then make sure you have a parentheses with x minus 3. As long as you have those, you can swap them around. It's okay. That's okay. Okay? All right, we're going to do one more. E and F were just practice problems. There's nothing new in E and F. They're just practice problems that I threw on here just in case we had time. We have time to do one. We'll do E. Okay? E is not anything different than what we've seen. It's not like there's something new. They're just practice problems. Okay? So let's see. All right, letter E. Okay, so -3m squared plus m to the 4th minus 4. First step. Is it in descending order right now? No, we got to change a couple things, right? I got to switch the first two guys. The guy is in first right now. I have to move because it's supposed to be in the middle. And this guy, this guy here has to go in front. So it should be m4 minus 3m squared minus 4. That's how it should have been at the beginning, but we've tweaked it. Is there a GCF? No. Yeah, the first guy is positive, so we don't have to do a negative. And there's not a GCF besides 1. Okay, go to the next step. ABC. A is 1. B is -3. C is -4. A times C is -4. 1 times -4. -3 goes on the bottom. So the two numbers that multiply to be -4, but at the same time add to be -3. 1 times 4 and it's going to be -4 because that makes -4 when you multiply and -3 when you add. 2 by 2 box. First guy after well, there was no GCF, so first guy is m to the 4. Last guy is -4. -4, +1. The middle guy is an m squared, so they need m squared. M2. Okay? What times what makes m to the 4th? M squared and m squared. And you got a -4 and a +1. So m squared minus 4, m squared plus 1. The GCF was just 1, so you don't need to write the 1 in front. Last step, are any of those guys difference of squares? Yeah. The first guy is. Second guy is close, but it's not minus. If that guy right there, because of that plus, it's not difference of squares. So this guy is. So I'm going to split this guy into two. This guy is just going to come down. Half the power, so plus and minus half the power, m square root is 2. Done. Okay. That's it. F, we don't have to do F. Don't worry about it. If you want to do F, go for it, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Yep, so just tape that into page 14, and we'll do some practice on Monday. Okay?